I always believed Grandma's house was the safest place in the world, a sanctuary of warm pastries, creaking floors, and the comforting scent of old books. It was the kind of place where troubles felt smaller, and love felt louder. So when Grandma invited the entire family for an early birthday gathering, I went without hesitation, eager for a weekend of laughter and nostalgia. I hadn't expected betrayal to be waiting right behind the front door. Everyone arrived in scattered waves throughout the afternoon. The house filled quickly with chattering voices, hugs from relatives I hadn't seen in months, and the clinking of dishes being arranged for dinner. And then, of course, she entered Alina, my cousin, my lifelong rival, the girl who turned everything, even breathing, into a competition. She swept into the room like she owned it, wearing a shimmering gold dress that caught the sun and practically demanded attention. She made sure to announce her newest promotion before she even hung up her coat. "It's been a big month for me," she said, loud enough for half the house to hear. I smiled and nodded, though something inside me tightened. With Alina, I'd learned to brace myself early. But for a while, the evening was peaceful. Grandma prepared her famous lemon, rosemary chicken, and we all ate around the long wooden table while sharing stories from our childhoods. Eventually, Grandma stood up, wobbling only slightly, and disappeared into her room. When she returned, she was carrying a delicate velvet, lined box that made everyone quiet down instantly. "These," she announced, opening the lid, "are the heirlooms your great-grandmother carried across the ocean when she came to this country." Inside were her treasures, a sapphire ring that sparkled like a drop of ocean, a pearl brooch shaped like a blooming flower, and a bundle of old letters tied with a faded ribbon. The room filled with soft gasps. I leaned in, and Grandma placed the brooch gently in my palm. "One day," she whispered, "these will be yours to protect." My chest warmed with pride. But out of the corner of my eye, I caught Elena's expression, a tight jaw, narrowed eyes, something sharp and cold simmering beneath her smile. The night eventually faded into yawns and good nights. I went to sleep feeling full and content, but that peace shattered at dawn. Grandma's distressed voice jolted me awake. I rushed downstairs to find her trembling beside an open drawer. "They're gone," she whispered. "The heirlooms, they're not here." The entire house erupted into chaos. People tore cushions from couches, opened cabinets, searched under rugs. Elena rushed into the room with perfect theatrical timing, hand clutched to her chest. "Wait, everyone," she said breathlessly. "I think we should see this." She held up my tote bag, open. My heart stopped. Inside the bag, sitting on top of my wallet and notebook, were the sapphire ring and the pearl brooch. "What?" The word barely escaped my throat. No, that's not mine." "I'm sorry," Elena said softly, shaking her head with a tragic expression that belonged in a soap opera. "I didn't want to say anything, but I saw you near the box last night. Maybe you were just curious, maybe you didn't mean to." The room grew icy. My uncle stared at me like I was a stranger. My aunt covered her mouth in disappointment. But the worst was Grandma, her eyes, usually so gentle, now filled with something like heartbreak. "I didn't steal anything," I whispered, but my voice cracked. No one believed me. And in that moment, surrounded by accusing eyes, I felt something inside me begin to crumble. The drive home after the accusation felt endless. I kept replaying the moment. Elena pulled my tote bag out like a magician, presenting her final trick. I could still see the crushed look on Grandma's face, still hear the whispers that followed me as I walked out. By the time I reached my apartment, the weight of their disappointment felt like it had settled on my chest permanently. The silence inside my home was suffocating. I set my bag down slowly, half expecting the heirlooms to still be there, taunting me. But of course they were gone, returned, safe, and yet, somehow, I was the one who felt stolen from my dignity, my relationships, my innocence. The fallout began quickly. My phone buzzed all night with messages from relatives, some polite, some not. Most dripping with a kind of disappointment that twisted my stomach. "We're worried about you. You should talk to Grandma. We hope you'll do the right thing." No one asked what really happened. No one even considered it. The next week at work wasn't any better. Word had spread thanks to a cousin who treated rumors like currency. A coworker whispered, "Is it true?" as I walked by. Another avoided me entirely. My supervisor called me in for a wellness check, which was code for "Are you the type who steals?" I went home early that day, feeling like the entire world had turned sideways. Alina, meanwhile, thrived. She visited Grandma every other day, according to my aunt's social media posts. She uploaded smiling photos captioned with, "Family time is everything to hearts, and so grateful to be trusted." Each picture felt like a slap, but even through all of this, one thing gnawed at me, the sense that Grandma wasn't completely convinced. She hadn't yelled at me, she hadn't cut me off entirely, she had simply said she needed time. Time for what? To accept the lie or to reconsider it. I wanted to call her so badly, but every time I picked up my phone, my throat tightened. What if she didn't answer? What if she did answer, but spoke to me like I was someone she didn't recognize? So instead, I focused on figuring out what really happened. I replayed the night in my mind over and over. The laughter, the heirlooms being passed around, Alina's expression when Grandma handed me the brooch, the way she slipped out of the room right before dinner, the way she had been the one to discover the bag. I knew her, I knew how badly she wanted to be the center of every story, how deeply it bothered her when Grandma praised me. But framing me, stealing heirlooms, it felt too monstrous even for her. Still, the pieces fit too neatly. As the days passed, cracks in Alina's version of events began to show. She told one aunt she saw me sneaking around late at night, but she told another that she saw me take the heirlooms after dinner. She said she found the bag on the table, but she told someone else she found it by the stairs. The inconsistencies burned themselves into my mind. One evening, desperate for clarity, I drove to Grandma's house. I didn't plan to go inside. I just wanted to see it. To remember what home used to feel like. The lights were on in the living room. I saw shadows moving, probably Grandma making tea for herself. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, but I couldn't build the courage to knock. When I finally drove away, a new determination settled in my chest. Not loud or dramatic, but steady and simmering. If Alina thought she'd broken me, she was wrong. I didn't have proof yet. But I was going to find it. I didn't know it at the time, but while I was drowning in isolation and suspicion, Grandma had begun noticing things she couldn't make sense of. She told me later that guilt and doubt had kept her awake night after night. Every time she tried to convince herself that I had taken the heirlooms, something small, some detail, pulled her back. A chair slightly moved, a drawer left open, a strange clicking sound near the hallway late one evening. She brushed them off at first. She was, after all, getting older, but the feeling wouldn't go away. Something wasn't right, and she hated how heavily her doubt weighed on her. She hated even more that Alina had suddenly taken such an active role in helping her. It was unlike her, too unlike her, so Grandma did something no one expected. She bought cameras, not big ones, not the obvious, blinking, wall-mounted type. She purchased tiny, motion-activated cameras that looked like pieces of decor, a miniature vase, a carved owl figurine for the mantel, a fake vent cover for the hallway. She placed them quietly, carefully, without telling a soul. She didn't expect to catch anything dramatic. She only wanted reassurance proof that her mind wasn't slipping. For several weeks, those cameras recorded nothing more than dust particles, visitors coming and going, and Grandma's cat stretching in front of the heater. Life looked normal until Alina arrived. It was a Wednesday afternoon when she stopped by the house, claiming she wanted to bring Grandma soup she'd made. Grandma welcomed her inside, unaware of what was about to unfold. She made tea in the kitchen while Alina sat on the couch, smiling, chatting, asking about the upcoming family events. But the moment Grandma stepped into the backyard to feed the cat, Alina's smile vanished and the camera caught everything. She waited 10 seconds, just long enough to be sure Grandma was out of earshot. Then she stood up, walked straight to the drawer where the jewelry box was kept, and opened it with terrifying familiarity. She didn't hesitate. She didn't search. She knew exactly where Grandma kept everything. She removed the sapphire ring and brooch, placing them into a small velvet pouch she'd brought with her. She wiped the drawer handle with a tissue, Then she glanced toward the backyard window and smirked, an expression that chilled Grandma when she rewatched it later. The hallway camera captured the next part, Elena slowly opening the closet where guests often hung their coats and slipping the pouch into her own handbag. Not a trace of guilt crossed her face. Then she heard Grandma's footsteps returning. In one fluid motion, Elena closed the drawer, composed her face, and resumed sitting on the couch as if she had never moved. When Grandma eventually reviewed the footage 2 weeks later, she nearly dropped her laptop. She had only opened the recordings because she'd noticed another pair of earrings missing. She expected maybe a raccoon sneaking in or her own forgetfulness. What she got was a horror show starring the one person she had trusted. Grandma told me she sat in silence for nearly an hour afterward, her hands trembling, the truth sinking in like poison. She watched the video again and again and again, hoping she had misunderstood, but the image stayed the same. Elena stealing, Elena framing, Elena lying. That night, Grandma called me for the first time in weeks. Her voice was tight, fragile, written with a pain I didn't yet understand. "Can you come over tomorrow?" she asked. Her words trembled. I need to talk to you, and I'm so sorry, my dear. I'm so terribly sorry. I didn't sleep at all." My heart pounded with fear. Fear of what she had discovered, fear of what she would reveal, fear that my worst suspicions had been right all along. Something big was coming, and this time, the truth was finally on my side. I arrived at Grandma's house early the next morning, nerves tangled in my stomach. The air felt different, heavy, charged, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. When Grandma opened the door, her eyes were red, her eyelashes clumped together as if she had cried all night. But her expression was steady, determined. "Come in," she whispered. I stepped inside cautiously, unsure of what waited for me. But before I could ask anything, Grandma wrapped her arms around me. Her embrace was tight, desperate, and filled with a guilt she hadn't yet voiced. I felt her shoulders shake, and with that, I knew something enormous had shifted. "Grandma," I murmured, "what's going on?" She pulled back, wiping her tears with trembling hands. "I've made a terrible mistake," she said, "and I intend to correct it." She walked into the living room and gestured toward the sofa. "Sit, I called everyone here for a meeting. It's time the truth comes out. Everyone." My pulse quickened. Even Elena, especially Elena. The family arrived in clusters. My aunt and uncle first, then 2 cousins, then my mother. Confusion flickered across their faces when they saw me sitting beside Grandma, instead of being avoided like a pariah. Elena showed up last, her expression bright and sugary, as though this were just another family brunch. "What's this all about?" she asked, sliding into a chair and crossing her legs. Her voice was syrupy, sweet, but a hint of nervousness tugged at the corners of her smile. Grandma didn't waste time. "I want everyone to watch something," she said, picking up the remote. The screen flickered to life. The room fell silent as Elena appeared on the television, captured by the tiny hidden camera in the living room. First she sat innocently, smiling. Then, as soon as Grandma left, she stood up and walked straight to the drawer. The footage played without mercy. Her stealing the ring and brooch, her wiping fingerprints, her placing the pouch into her handbag. Gasps filled the room. My aunt covered her mouth. My uncle leaned forward, face draining of color. My mother whispered, "Oh my God," but no reaction compared to Elena's. Her face turned white, then red, then white again, like a storm cloud struggling to settle. She jumped to her feet. That's not. This is taken out of context. I was just..." Grandma pressed pause sharply. "Shall we watch the hallway camera too?" she asked, voice unexpectedly calm. Elena froze. For the first time in my life, she looked small. The confident posture crumbled. Her lips trembled. Her eyes darted around the room, searching desperately for someone, anyone. To defend her, no one did. "Why, Elena," Grandma asked softly, "why would you do this?" Elena swallowed hard. I didn't think it would go this far. That's not an answer." My mother snapped, her voice slicing through the tension. Elena's shoulders sagged, and she sank back into her chair. "I was sick of her getting everything," she muttered, glaring at me with a bitter, hollow resentment. "You always loved her more. The confession burned, but it also freed something inside me. Grandma shook her head, heartbreak etched into every wrinkle on her face. You could have talked to me, but you chose to lie, to steal, to hurt someone who has never done anything to you. Elena burst into tears and fled the room, her sobs echoing down the hallway. No one followed. The silence she left behind was heavy, but it wasn't painful, not for me, not anymore. Grandma turned toward me, eyes shining. I am so sorry, she whispered. I let doubt cloud my judgment. I hurt you deeply. I took her hand. You made it right, Grandma. That's what matters. She reached for something on the table, a small velvet box. She opened it, revealing the pearl brooch. This belongs with you, she said, not because of what happened, but because you've shown integrity when others chose deceit. Emotion swelled in my chest. I accepted the brooch with trembling fingers. As I pinned it carefully to my blouse, I felt something lift from me, months of shame dissolving, replaced by a strength I never knew I had. For the first time in a long time, I stood tall, surrounded by family, seen, believed, vindicated, and this time the truth wasn't a whisper. It was undeniable.